What is up, Waffle Gang? My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip that initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. You guys are absolutely spoiling me just lately. On Patreon, we have Patricia Murdoch join us, and over on YouTube, Apocalyptic Squid. Thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me at this time, and just thank you for everyone for coming here, for taking the times out of your days to be here. You know, it's absolutely amazing. And with that being said, let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. And our first story is from a throwaway account. Would I be the arsehole for forcibly adopting my brother's daughter despite his protests? I don't know if this should go here. I tried writing it for an advice subreddit, but it ended up being a moral judgment post. So sorry if this is the wrong kind of question for this forum. My brother Mark, oh no, has a 4-year-old daughter, Mia. He's never involved with Mia, aside from being on her birth certificate and paying child support. I, however, knew Mia's mother, who was a friend of mine, and she was alright with me being Mia's aunt, despite Mark's objections. Her mother passed away a few months ago. Mia was meant to be staying with Mark after that, but he gave her to her grandparents, who have said they can take her for short term, but can't look after her long term, and have been reaching out to their relatives, including me, asking if someone could take her. I want to take her. I consulted Mia's caseworker, who said it would be fine. My husband and kids are all on board with bringing her into our household, and we have the resources to make it work. Extra bedroom, enough income, etc. However, the caseworker said that Mark would probably need to sign off on it, as he's the only living parent. I decided to broach it with Mark. His response was to call me a bitch and to tell me to stay out of it, that he stepped down as a dad and I shouldn't force him to now be an uncle to Mia. After that conversation, I spoke to the caseworker again, as well as someone who works in family law. As Mark is not looking after this child and the grandparents are fine with me taking Mia, there is a legal route we could take to go over my brother's head and adopt Mia without his consent. We decided to take this route. We had to give Mark notice that we want to seek custody, which is going to kickstart a whole legal process, in which we essentially must prove that Mia will be better off with us. Which shouldn't be difficult, but will require a hearing, possibly a few, and a court case. Mark is very against this. He says he doesn't want any level of contact with Mia, as a father or an uncle, and that he feels I'm being unreasonable in not giving him any say in this. He also said that the court case could have professional repercussions for him, and that if he's deemed unfit, which is essentially what we'll be attempting to do, that could harm him if he has kids in the future. He also says that as Mia's father, this should be his decision, and I shall respect that it's his choice to not take custody of her and remove himself from her life entirely. I'm worried I'm morally incorrect. At the end of the day, Mia is Mark's daughter, and her grandparents could probably find someone else in her mother's family to take her. They asked me first and didn't ask anyone else after I expressed an interest, and as Mark isn't willing to give us custody, that would require a legal case, which could have repercussions for Mark. Additionally, Mark has informed some of our immediate family, siblings and parents, of my intentions, and they all agree that I'm in the wrong here. And while I don't give much weight to what our parents think, our siblings agreeing with Mark makes me hesitate. Would I be the arsehole for pursuing this case and not dropping it? Damn, first, this guy gives Mark a bad name everywhere. Second, what is this guy's problem? What has he got against his biological child? You know, he had the choice to, in the nicest possible way, pass Mia on to a loving family without all this legal stuff going on. He made the choice to be an arsehole about this, so this is down to him. And what is that comment in there? The one that really got to me is that he said this could affect his future, that it could harm him if he has kids in the future. Dude, please just don't have kids in the future. You sound like an absolutely awful person. Not the arsehole in my opinion, but let's have a look at the comments below to see what they say. Bright Copper Kettle says, not the arsehole. If Mark is worried about the repercussions of a court case, professionally and personally, then he should sign the documentation without making the court case necessary. Mia is loved and wanted, and I hope you manage to get custody. Mission Spray says, not the arsehole. Your brother abandoning his motherless child is the biggest arsehole I have ever come across in my entire life. I hope he never has any more children. I hope you get full custody of Mia and give her the love she desperately needs. Also, I'd seriously reconsider having your brother in your lives. He's a horrible human being and incredibly cruel and heartless. Francie Cat says not the arsehole. He seems to be holding on to an unnatural amount of hate to his biological child. You're not forcing him to be an uncle either, or asking him for monetary support in any way. You're literally just trying to parent your niece since her mother is gone and refuses to do so. OP replies to this saying, he's always been cruel to Mia. He tried to accuse Mia's mother of cheating on him, so he ordered a DNA test to prove it, and when the test confirmed Mia was his child, Mark had to sign the birth certificate. He had to pay child support, which is about £120 a month, and despite many people explaining to him that £120 was a fraction of what Mia's mother was spending, Mark felt that Mia's mother was taking advantage of him, which caused a lot of resentment on his part for both Mia and her mother, despite neither of them doing anything wrong. And Paranormal Spider Lily says, not the arsehole, everything that Mark is saying you're doing is because he is unwilling to be reasonable. He doesn't want to be deemed unfit, just sign over parental rights to you. He doesn't want the court case to affect his work. You don't need a court case if he just signs over his rights to you. Trying to keep the child he abandoned from finding a loving family just because they happen to be related to him is disgusting. He doesn't want anything to do with the child, fine. He doesn't have any contact with you, fuck him. The rest of your siblings are fools or monsters if they genuinely agree with him. Now, what would you do in this situation if you was OP? I'd personally just, take the child on and go no contact with that guy because he sounds, as one of the comments said, an absolutely horrible human being. What would you do in this situation? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 1. And our next story is from Lady Goomba. Am I the arsehole for reporting my brother-in-law's sister to a HIPAA board for accessing my medical records? This happened a long time ago, but it has nagged at me and made me question if my actions were worth it. Many years ago, I wasn't doing very well mentally and was hospitalised. My sister and I had a rocky relationship, but were just starting to get close again. When this hospitalisation occurred, I was ashamed and did not want her to know, fearing it would destroy what took so long to repair. After I was released, my dad told me that my sister knew about it, but she did not contact me, just checked in with my dad about me. I was 100% certain that the only person who knew was my dad, and he assured me he did not tell her. It then dawned on me that my brother-in-law's sister works as a nurse where I was hospitalised, so I called the hospital. I felt embarrassed about the accusation, but they were very nice and took my concerns seriously. A couple of weeks later, they followed up and verified that she did indeed access my medical records without being my nurse. They said she was scheduled to meet with a board or a committee, but they could not inform me of the outcome. Since then, my sister and brother-in-law have cut off all communication. I have written letters, tried calling her, etc., but I was blocked entirely. I did not intend to hurt anyone. I was more upset that this very sensitive and private subject was violated by an employee, and I did not feel it was right of her to use her position to access my records and inform my sister. If I had wanted my sister to know, I would have told her on my own time. However, I have missed meeting the birth of both my niece and nephew and lost my sister and friends associated with her. Family is very important to me, as mine has been very broken and is heartbreaking to not be included. Was I in the wrong? Edit. I am now realising a large group of strangers are better family than my own. I was not expecting this to be one-sided because of the severe backlash I received from my own. I've been feeling guilt and remorse for too many years, and I feel like I can finally move on, stop beating myself up for this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, and please continue to share your thoughts and your stories. These discussions have the potential for healing, education, and improved mental health. And that is what I love about these stories, that edit there. When I hear people, comparing their own lives to these stories and thinking, I'm not in the wrong here. And realising, that they are not in the wrong in many of these situations, and that it's their own family dynamic that's damaging them as a person. And to realise, I can make a change in my own life. It's absolutely incredible, and it really does keep me going, this kind of thing. And absolutely not. Screw them. They access your medical records. As I've heard from many stories where they break these HIPAA rules, it's absolutely illegal and totally against it. We know that these systems have automatic checks for people doing this kind of thing, suspicious activity within the system. So yes, they should be called out for what they're doing. If a relative of mine done that to me, went behind my back and somehow found out my medical records, I wouldn't be happy. I'm more than willing to discuss most of my medical problems anyway. I tell you guys most of them. But I still wouldn't be happy if someone was snooping behind my back and going through my medical records. It's illegal, simple as. So not the arsehole in this situation. But High Lord Alundi says, absolutely not the arsehole. She broke the law. She gets to deal with the consequences. A lot of the time these aren't isolated incidents, so it's entirely possible she's done it to others as well. I understand it hurts to be shut out, but you need to release yourself from the guilt because sister-in-law, and by extension the rest of your family apparently, does not respect you. Luxury Divine says, not the arsehole, that's horrible and I'm really sorry that happened to you. Them choosing to go no contact with you after you reported their wrongdoing is not your fault. HIPAA violations are a huge deal, and especially as you were someone who was struggling psychologically. That could make things much worse because it's such a violation of trust. These are things that often make people less likely to get help when they need it. Also, if she has no qualms about doing this in relation to you, she clearly doesn't care about how serious and horrible that is, and could be doing it for however many people, which could further contribute to bad things in their lives. She is responsible for the consequences of her actions. Honestly, one stranger to another, I'm proud of you. It can take so much courage to report things like that, and I think you made a good choice. You're not in the wrong at all for that. Avatar fan says, not the arsehole, she did something wrong and got punished. She violated the rules as a nurse, which is very serious. Is she not a nurse anymore? And OP replies, from my knowledge and her LinkedIn page, she lost her job at the specific hospital. I fart a lot too, what a name, says, I'm sorry this happened. Understand she would have been called before our board and there would need to be evidence of ethical breach. Patient confidentiality is sacred as attorney/client privilege and the confession between priest and congregant. She violated the ethics of her profession purposefully. I emphasize purposely because there is a difference between a practitioner who accidentally does this and someone who actually plans and executes this. If she was a lawyer, she would be disbarred. She not only dishonored herself, she dishonored the profession. Stay away from these people. They are disturbed, not the arsehole. And Dazzle Love says, doctor here, she shouldn't have access your medical records if you come in with ingrowing toenail, never mind MH problems. Then she made the additional heinous breach by disseminating what she found out to your sister. Even had she been entitled to access your details, e.g. if she'd been your nurse, she should not have discussed it with your sister. So it's two massive breaches of her ethical code. Now, what would you do in this situation? Would you have reported them? Would you have phoned up to a question, has someone been accessing my records? I think I would have certainly done the same, you know, and then cut that family off because they sound like absolute more horrible people, right? What do you guys make of this story? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 2. And whilst we're in between stories, just to make you aware, we have a Supporter Saturday video coming out today. For some reason, YouTube doesn't seem to notify members that a video is coming out, so be sure to check on the actual channel page for the membership videos in the community section too, or over on Patreon in the feed there. Cheers guys. And our next story is from Sunflower. Am I the arsehole for suggesting that my husband used some of his daughter's college fund to contribute in my son's wedding? What's an am I the arsehole post without a wedding one, right? My son is getting married in December. He's been struggling to get a new job after he left his old job, and the job search took way longer than expected. We can't afford the whole wedding now, and we can't change the wedding date since his fiance refused. So I asked my husband if he could take some of my stepdaughter's 16 college fund to pay for the wedding. My husband was upset and told me that he was surprised I even suggested this, and his relationship with his daughter is already severe enough, and taking money from her college fund would destroy the relationship completely. Said that this would tell his daughter that my son is more important than her. He yelled at me and told me to drop it. My husband seems upset with me even though it's been a week since we had this conversation, and refusing to discuss it any further. Edit to say I did tell him I'd pay it back, but he lashed out at me and said that the best option is to postpone, but my son's fiance is being controlling and demanding. We don't change the date, saying it's not my wedding and I don't have a say. Also, I have a good relationship with my stepdaughter, and she's very smart. To be honest, she doesn't know her dad and I had this conversation, and I don't know whether she'd be okay with it, but my husband already gave me an answer. And we're going to head straight to the comments with this one, with Lol saying, you're the arsehole, how could you even ask that? That's her college money, not your son's wedding money. Your son and his fiance need to figure something out, in a way that doesn't involve stealing from a 16-year-old. Sheesh, lady. Zoe Beard says, you're the arsehole, it says daughters to use for college, and by using the money you're telling the daughter that your son's wedding is more important than her college education. Just have a simple ceremony and leave it at that until you can have a proper celebration when your son can get a stable job. Saint Godfather says you're the arsehole, your son can finance his own wedding, or fiancé can change the date. None of this is your stepdaughter's fault, nor responsibility. Also, a college fund is a billion times more important than a wedding. Tell them to hit the courthouse and stop feeling entitled to other people's things. Competitive T says you're the arsehole, cut costs, postpone or cancel. I can't believe you would even think for a second that your son is entitled to someone else's college money. He told you to drop it, so drop it. You have to find the money somewhere else. Nanny Live says you're the arsehole. If your son and his SO cannot afford an expensive wedding, they should plan a less expensive one. Your husband would be wrong to spend funds earmarked for a minor's daughter's education for an adult son's wedding. Which child belongs to each of you is immaterial. Now, what do you guys think of this story? Quick short one there, but brings up some issues too. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 3. Just a pre-warning, a little trigger warning before this next story, that there's mentions of abortion. Well, the story's about an abortion actually, so a lot of mentions of it. So if you want to skip this one, you can skip to the end. It's up to you guys. So this next story is from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for letting boyfriend confront my best friend about her abortion? Throwaway account. So my female 20 best friend Felicia, female 19, has been with her partner Michael, male 20, for 2 years. Best friends for 8. They've always had a weird relationship. They're very private and haven't been intimate until their 2nd anniversary. They have this really weird arrangement set up, consent stuff and what they'd do if they got pregnant, etc. Felicia ended up getting pregnant, despite them using a condom. They both agreed to abortion and went through the process together. I know emotionally it was a difficult time for both of them, and I was supportive all the way through. But she hasn't been fun to be around lately, and kind of a Debbie Downer, so I arrange a double date. My boyfriend, male 21, is a very opinionated guy, but he isn't usually one for confrontation. Upon hearing about the abortion, I told him in confidence, since Felicia and Michael didn't want anyone knowing, confronted Felicia about it. He's very much against it. In certain circumstances, I didn't know until after I told him, he believes that Felicia's case, it shouldn't be allowed. I never thought in a million years he'd do me dirty like that. Basically, the reason they wanted an abortion was because they were too young and didn't have enough income to provide for a child. My boyfriend argued that they were smart enough and it wasn't like they were poor, and if they worked harder they could have had the child or put it up for adoption. Felicia said she could never do that to a child, that it wasn't guaranteed they would have a good life, and both of them had dreams and ambitions they just couldn't give up. He ended up ruining the entire evening by calling her a child killer and saying she should be ashamed of herself for killing it. Basically, Michael got angry and shit hit the roof. I tried to apologise. I didn't think he'd say anything because he usually would never, and it just happened way too quickly for me to intervene properly. She's beyond pissed with me and said I betrayed her by telling him and by letting him speak to her in that way when she already felt awful, and that I just let it happen. I got annoyed and said she was being a hypocrite because she believes that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and whilst his opinion is very harsh, it is what he believes, and that she should accept the difference of opinion. She said they were both insensitive to the situation and would never understand. It's honestly a sticky situation, and it's not like I control what he says / doesn't say. I don't know, am I the arsehole here, or is it no one's an arsehole here? And there was a small edit towards the end which said everyone keeps commenting that I gossiped. I and my boyfriend are at the stage where we confide in one another. We've been together for almost 6 months and we tell each other everything. I'm going to start off with that, because if you do tell each other everything and you know your boyfriend that well, you know he's a gobshite. So you don't tell him sensitive things like that if you know he's going to blow up at someone, right? You said you keep claiming that you didn't know he was going to come out with this, but you also claim at the end you know him well enough to tell him everything. So you must know he's a gobshite. And you just don't tell people stuff like that, even if you love them to bits. You just do not share that information if they're going to go like bad-mouthing people and you don't want to create a scene. And you also defended his opinion. Sure, everyone's allowed their own opinion. Absolutely. But he sat there and called your best friend a child killer. And you accepted it. You sat there and was like, yeah, he's allowed that opinion. What a moron. And you had the cheek to call her a hypocrite too. Oh god, it gets worse, man. If I was with a partner and I was sat in a restaurant with my best friends, my partner started coming out with all this sort of stuff, they'd be gone right there and then at that table. That's simple, really. You're meant to be this person's best friend, keeping their secrets, and helping them with their life and, being sensitive to the situation, which you was not in any shape or form in this story. That makes you a huge gaping asshole. But let's have a look at the comments below to see what they say. Butters says you're the arsehole and so is your boyfriend. In fact, you're both unequivocally some of the biggest arseholes on planet Earth. I hope she dumps you as a friend and you should reevaluate your own relationship with your boyfriend, as he is someone who would do something so fucking shitty. Sabrina says, in quotes, I got annoyed and said she was being a hypocrite because she believes everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And whilst his opinion is very harsh, it is what he believes and she should accept the difference of opinion. Then says, of course you're the arsehole. How can you defend your boyfriend after he called your so-called best friend a child killer during a double date, which was the whole purpose to forget about the fact she just went through something traumatic? Your boyfriend is a horrible, insensitive jerk with clearly no compassion and you stood up for him. She Stammy says, you're the arsehole, and from this story alone, you don't sound like a good person or a smart one. 1. You shared someone's private medical information without permission. 2. You didn't shut down your partner's disgusting and cruel rant about your friend's private medical history. 3. You call her a hypocrite for being justifiably upset about this. Why do you stains on society always equate entitled to an opinion with everyone must listen to me spew garbage without criticism, emotional responses, or consequences whatsoever? 4. It sounds like you didn't end your relationship with this guy. The icing on your cake for why your friend would never speak to you again. Good luck on your journey to maturity, OP. You've got a long way to go. Reddit Gold Digger says, you're the arsehole. Are you kidding? She told you a secret. That means she wanted only you to know, as her best friend. Not for her boyfriend to know, or she would have told you together. To boot, it was a hugely personal and intimate and potentially reputation damaging thing, as per your boyfriend's reaction. She's 100% right to feel betrayed. Yeah, you don't control what he says, but you sure as hell can control what you do. You should have been beyond apologetic afterwards. Yeah, your boyfriend is entitled to his opinion. What he isn't entitled to is to shove it down someone's throat who neither volunteered their personal information to him, who didn't agree for it to be discussed, and who also expressed after the intervention that she wanted it not to continue. That's what decent people do. If you're speaking and someone says, please, I don't want to discuss X personal matter, you respect it. You really think he has the right to call your depressed friend a child killer in public. Also, you seem like a rubbish friend. She's a Debbie Downer right now. I wonder why. Man. Wow. How would you have dealt with that situation if you were sat at that table? And if you was any of these people at that table, what would you have done? How would you have handled that situation? It's an absolutely crazy one and full of arseholes. Obviously not the couple who went through this, but these other two, OP and her other half. Wow. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 4. Once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you have enjoyed today's stories, and as I mentioned before, don't forget we have a membership video coming today, Saturday, 7th, 11th, 2020, just in case you're on the podcast. And thank you for being here once again, guys. The time out of your day is really amazing, and it's great just to have you guys as part of the community. I've got so much, I hate to say it, like fan art. I hate the word fan art because I don't feel that sort of way, you know. But so much of it came in yesterday. It is absolutely amazing. I will be displaying it in some videos in the future, so look out for that too. And thank you so much for just everything. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.